Do the Carolina Panthers miss Brian Burns? Folks, before we get too far into this thing and you start shouting out about contracts and, hey, we gave up Burns, we got this offensive line in place of that, I'm not asking about value from a contract perspective. I'm asking from a player perspective. Now, I understand you can't really look at one or the other. They're kind of coupled together. And knowing if Brian Burns was here, we probably wouldn't have the offensive line that we have and or a few other players. So I will acknowledge that. But I want to talk about from a defensive standpoint. And yeah, has he been A++ this season? No. Career-wise, he's kind of fallen off, at least if you're only focused on sacks. If we go back, he has 49 career sacks, 7.5, 9, 12.5, 8. 3 sacks this year for the New York Giants. Kind of starting to come around, getting some pressure. The Carolina Panthers have 6 total sacks on the year, folks. That's it. Not in one game. Not in one game. 6 total. And you want to know who the sack leader is? It's Jaden Peavy, who is on the practice squad now. He's on the 53. Now he's back on the practice squad, so he has 1.5. 4 players have 1. LeBrian Ray, Jadeveon Clowney, Charles Harris, Iku Leota. Guess where Iku Leota is? He is on the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is not even on the Carolina Panthers anymore. And then half a sack from DJ Johnson. 6 total. So really, out of your 6, 2.5 of those aren't even on the active roster. That is bad. So what, 3.5 on the active roster as it is today. And I know PV can get caught up for the game, as he's on the practice squad. But either way, do the Panthers miss Brian Burns? And I say absolutely. And I'm not saying that, sure, dollar for dollar, maybe he's not the $35 million player, at least right now. I'm not saying he's not going to be. But if you could have his production here right now and his playmaking ability, look at what the Panthers are doing. I don't know how many people follow the Panthers. The Panthers have a gauntlet of tryouts, of practice squad guys, of signing guys off the street to try to come in and help give us any pressure, give us any sacks. Folks, let's go back just from October 8th to today, which is October 15th as I record this. They signed Shaq Lawson to the practice squad, so off the street. They signed Marquise Haynes Sr. He got elevated to the active roster. That was on game day. They signed Jacoby Windman, outside linebacker, to the active roster. They waived Taron Jackson, who is an outside linebacker. They continue to fill in the rotation, man. And it's not good. And I say, yes, the Panthers miss Brian Burns. They do. There's no doubt about it. Again, I know the money side, but I'm telling you from a player perspective, here's what I think what's really tough is DJ Wonnum. That's probably the bigger what-if scenario in this entire equation, because I went back and looked, and this injury was almost a year ago. I guess it happened in December. He goes through his surgery. Panthers sign him. They suffer a setback. I think my question is, did the Panthers miss something in their evaluation? And I'm not saying that to say like he's like screwed something up on purpose or that they missed something. I just, like, as you evaluate the situation, like, setbacks are going to happen. I understand that. Like, not every recovery and surgery is going to go exactly the same. But did the Panthers really think this through? And I look back at a bunch of Reddits of Vikings fans who said this guy was a rotational piece, that he wasn't a true starter. Speaking of DJ Wonnum, and here he is getting a pretty good paycheck to come over to Carolina. A lot of Panthers fans are like, oh my gosh, we're set. We don't need Brian Burns. We have DJ Wonnum and Jadeveon Clowney. And Between the two, you got 1 sack. And only one of them playing and one of them missing time in Jadeveon Clowney, who is doing all he can to be out there, and I appreciate it. But I think even looking at Clowney, perspective-wise, if you look at either of those, he was a product of a very good Baltimore Ravens defense with a bunch of playmakers. And now here, Carolina, he's seeing a decline, but I think, hey, that goes beyond just him. That's the entire defense that is in the state that it's in. But I think the Panthers, yeah, they do miss Brian Burns just like they miss DJ Moore, just like when healthy they miss a Christian McCaffrey. And so now we turn the corner and they miss a Frankie Louvu, which I know Frankie wanted to play in the system and he's doing great in Washington under Dan Quinn. But as a fan of this team who watches, makes podcasts and records, spends all my time focused on these guys, I just want them to look at the playmakers that we have here and make sure they're back next year. Start your list of the 6 or 7 guys, whoever it is, out of the free agent group and bucket. Deontay Johnson, Chuba Hubbard, have them back. Do not second guess this. If you want to build a foundation for the future, you got to start with them. Do not let these situations stack up. And I know they did right by Derek Brown. And I know he suffered the setback and injury this year, but they did do right by him going ahead and getting the contract up and in place. So all I say is like, hey, should we talk about Brian Burns? Yeah, I do think the Panthers miss him. But of course, I'd love to know what y'all think. As always, drop your thoughts in the comments. This is CD. Y'all have a good one.